Okay, so for 4.1, 4.2 and 4.3, I am doing them together because one is just the overview of photosynthesis, and then the other one goes into more depth with it. So um, when we look at the more in-depth part, there may be parts where I say you really don't need to know. This is what I'm wanting you to know from it. So I will mention that as we go through. So when we talk about photosynthesis, photosynthetic organisms are producers. We talked about that before. Producers are, once again, organisms that make their own source of chemical energy. So they've taken it from the sun or from uh, some source like chemicals, if you're talking about chemosynthesis, and make it into an energy that they can use. Plants make sugar. So plants use photosynthesis and are producers. Photosynthesis captures energy from the sun to make sugars. Chlorophyll within the plant is going to be the molecule that is responsible for absorbing the light energy. So chlorophyll is a pigment, and the pigment's job is to absorb the sun's energy. When we're talking about the sun's energy, you see certain wavelengths of light. You see the light you see because of what is reflected back. So if you see a plant as green, it means the plant is not absorbing green light, it is reflecting it. And so it's absorbing all of the other colors instead. So most plants appear as green because they reflect the green light. Um, and then at certain points of the year, like in the fall, the chlorophyll, when it starts to break down, it stops reflecting the green light and starts absorbing it, and it starts reflecting the other pigments that it has in it. So that's why it goes to like that reddish brown or like a violet purple when the leaves change color. So it's still absorbing light at that point in time, but it's just not absorbing the green light anymore, or I'm sorry, reflecting the green light anymore. It's absorbing that light. So in the plant, chlorophyll is located in the organelle called the chloroplast. So uh, the last chapter, we talked about plants have chloroplast. Chloroplast is going to be the site where it does photosynthesis. When we talk about photosynthesis in the plants, photosynthesis takes place in two main parts of the chloroplast. So within the chloroplast, you have little green pancakes called thylakoids. When they're all stacked up on one another, they're called grana, and an individual stack is granum. And then within the chloroplast, surrounding all of the thylakoids, is a thick liquid called stroma. So some of the photosynthesis is going to take place in the thylakoids, some is going to take place in the liquid within the chloroplast called the stroma. So and here off to the right is a picture of the chloroplast, and you can see that little green disc right there. The individual one is the thylakoid, the stack is the grana, and then the stroma is the fluid that's all out and around there. The light-dependent reaction, there's two parts of the photosynthesis. You've got light-dependent and light-independent. Light-dependent reactions capture energy from the sunlight. So that's going to take place in the thylakoids, or in the grana. So it's going to trap the sun's energy. At that point in time, water and sunlight are needed in that first stage of photosynthesis. The chlorophyll is going to absorb the energy, and once it has absorbed that energy, the energy is going to be transferred along the thylakoid membrane, then to the light independent reaction. So the light dependent and light independent are connected to one another, and that the light independent is going to use the products of the light dependent reaction. So also during the light dependent reaction, that's going to be where oxygen is released. So we are going to be able to get oxygen at that point in time. So that oxygen comes from ripping apart water molecules, and the oxygen is going to be waste that's released by the plant. So that's going to be where all of the oxygen that we breathe comes from that first stage of the light dependent reaction. We'll go into, like I said, more detail here in a minute. So light independent reactions, they are going to make sugars. So that is the job of light independent. It does not need sunlight in order to work. It can be happening at night. It happens in the stroma, so that's thick liquid within the chloroplast. It needs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to be able to function and make glucose. So this is why plants take in carbon dioxide, is to help do this process right here. So they are going to use energy to build sugar in a cycle of chemical reactions. So that's what you see here down at the bottom. You see the carbon dioxide is going to come in, it's going to join up, and it's going to use energy from the light from the plant to help make sugar. Most of the time, that sugar is going to be glucose, cellulose, or starch. So right here is the equation for the overall process of photosynthesis. It's 6 carbon dioxide plus 6 water molecules, and then we could really write over this light so light is going to give you, so here are the products on the right hand side, glucose and 6 oxygen. So that is what happens in photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis and respiration are considered opposite processes. And they're opposite because when I show you the respiration one, the products of photosynthesis are going to be the reactants in respiration and vice versa. So here it is all together right here in that picture. So sunlight comes in, so does water. It's going to create some energy, and you're going to have oxygen leave. That energy is going to go down to the light independent reaction. In the light independent reaction, you're going to have carbon dioxide come in, and it's going to give you glucose. So that's a basic thing. If you just understand that, awesome. That would be great if you just understand that part of it. But like I said, we're going to go into a little bit more detail with it. So the first stage of photosynthesis captures and transfers energy. In the light dependent reactions, it's going to include a group of molecules called photosystems. The light dependent reactions take place in and across the thylakoid membrane. So photosystem 2 is going to capture and transfer energy. You've got the chlorophyll is going to absorb the sun's energy. When it does that, it's going to have electrons are going to become energized or excited, and that excited electron is going to be passed along this electron transport chain. And when it does that, when that electron leaves the chlorophyll, we need a way to get that a new electron back into that chlorophyll, or the chlorophyll will break down. So that's where the water comes in. It rips apart the water molecule, and it takes electrons from the the hydrogen and replaces the ones that had left. And so when it rips it apart, that's where the oxygen comes from, is when the water molecule is split. So that's going to be where the oxygen is going to be released. So the hydrogen ions then are transported across the thylakoid membrane. So that's what you're seeing in this picture off to the side. Sun comes in, energy excited, and you're going to end up having the oxygen is going to end up being let go during that point in time. So photosystem 2 captures the energy and produces energy-carrying molecules. Those energy-carrying molecules are called electron carriers. In this case, it's going to be NADP+. And when it picks up that hydrogen, it's going to be NADPH. So chlorophyll, like I said, absorbs that sunlight. The energized electrons are used to make NADPH, which that NADPH is an electron carrier. That NADPH is going to be transferred to the light-independent reaction, and it's going to be used in helping make the sugar in that point in time. So that is what is happening in this point in time. And also during this point in time, you can see that ADP is being, so the ADP right there is being turned into ATP during this point in time as well. And then right over here was the NADP plus getting turned into NADPH. And that NADPH, again, is going to go to the next reaction. So it's going to be NADPH, ATP, and oxygen are all created, are all products of the first stage of photosynthesis during that light dependent stage. And it's going to pass that, all of those things except for the oxygen, on to the next stage. So the light-dependent reactions produce ATP. You have the hydrogen ions are going to flow through that channel in the thylakoid membrane. That ATP synthase is going to attach to the channel and make ATP. So that's microscopic views of it. In the second stage of photosynthesis, this is the light-independent reaction. This stage is also known as the Calvin cycle. So in light-independent reactions, it's going to occur in the stroma once again, and it's going to use carbon dioxide in order to help make the sugars. So the light-independent reactions, again, take place in the stroma. A molecule of glucose is formed as it stores some of the energy captured in the sunlight. So carbon dioxide molecules enter the Calvin cycle. Energy is going to be added, and carbon molecules are going to be rearranged. A high energy 3-carbon molecule is going to leave the cycle. So you end up having as it goes, if you're looking down at the bottom, you've got this molecule in stage 1 that's going to start, you're going to end up having it come in. It's going to keep going around. You're going to have more carbons added as you go, and then again more carbon is going to be added, and to add it, you're having to break down ATP, and you're taking the hydrogens from the NADPH to help do all of this, and eventually you're going to end up with the 6-carbon molecule that we needed, and that is the Calvin cycle. So 2 3-carbon molecules bond to form the sugar. That's what you see right over here, and the remaining molecules are going to stay within the cycle. It's just going to keep going over and over again. So again, this is also known as the Calvin cycle. So in the Calvin cycle, the things that are created are glucose, NADP+, and ADP are going to be the things that are created during that stage. So that is photosynthesis. Like I said, if you understand just that first part of it, great. It would be good to know what's made in each one of the stages of photosynthesis as well.